Okay.
And we're live. And with me, I have Colbys Production.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
I'm so glad you came. I saw your video, and it was actually really funny. You were trying to open up a jar of asparagus, and you were working with you're like jars are sexist for women, and they make it purposely hard so that women would need men to help them open for them. You're trying to remind women that they're weaker than men.
Yeah, I, as I said previously, I got that idea from, what a video where I saw coverage on a woman who was claiming that air conditioning in the office is sexist, which I found quite ridiculous. So, I in turn made the jars are sexist because I mean, if you use that kind of thinking, you can pretty much point at anything and make it into something that's sexist when in reality it's not. And that was kind of the talking points of uh, the interviewer that was in that video as well.
Yeah, it was really funny. And I also saw the cartoon you make with the black guy and the white guy, and they were trying to talk about what people are sexually attracted to is like racist, sexist, or whatever. It's kind of like and the white guy's like, I like what I like, you know. If I'm not attracted to the black girl, I'm not attracted to it. If I'm not attracted to that land whale, then I'm just not attracted.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because the what that came from is back in high school. This was quite a while ago. I remember I had um, this conversation with some friends that I had back in high school, and basically they were talking about this black girl they were attracted to, and I kind of said to them, I'm like, well, you guys like what you like, not some once in a while I'm attracted, but for the most part, just oh, did we cut out here?
No, I'm still here.
Okay, perfect. But yeah, I basically said, you know, so once in a while, yes, but for the most part, I'm not typically attracted to black women. Just and these friends that I had called me out as racist, which I found pretty interesting because, um, I've had friends of all different cultures and races, and I see nothing past the color of the skin. But what I happen to be attracted to is something I can't really help, and that's kind of the huge point I was trying to make in that cartoon I made. Is just as long as someone isn't looking down on people or specific race or culture, you can't call them out as being racist just because they're not sexually attracted to that race or culture, in my opinion at least. And I just find it interesting because it seems like you can't say anything without someone trying to call you out as racist. And of course, there's definitely racist people out there. Don't get me wrong. Um, but I find the dialogue should be a little bit more open, and people shouldn't be so scared, to say anything about race. Like, and so that's kind of what the point of the video was, as well as kind of sexual preference. It's just that you wouldn't go up to a gay person and call them sexist because they're not attracted to women and they happen to be gay. They can't really help that.
Yeah, so you draw all your own cartoons. You don't have anybody to help draw them for you. You do. all of it yourself?
I wish I had people. I I've had actors in the past, and now some of my actors I'm a bit too far away from. But yeah, I draw myself. I make all the music for my channel by myself. I yeah, basically the whole thing's a one man show for now.
So, like, when you draw cartoons, you do all the voices for each cartoon. You're the black voice as well.
That is correct.
Wow, wow. Yeah, I guess you just haven't found anybody to want to pitch in and do other voices.
Yeah, it's I'm definitely open to anyone who wants to come to my channel and possibly voice act or do a collaboration or anything like that. It definitely takes a lot of um, effort out of my hands as well. But I also understand people have their own channels and they got to promote their own stuff and whatnot. So
Well, if you ever need a female voice, look me up.
oh, that'd be yeah, definitely. I'd appreciate that. Actually, funny enough, there female voice is one of the things I unfortunately can't do. So yeah, that'd definitely be a big help.
Yeah, I mean, I've always wanted to do voice acting, for a very long time. So if you're looking for a female voice, I'm definitely interested.
Okay, cool. Okay, I'm not doing a cartoon right now. I'm doing a different video. Well, actually, it is a cartoon, but it's a music video. Um, but I do have a couple things coming up eventually that will require a female voice. So I will see if you're interested later when I get up to them.
Okay. Oh, and also earlier we were talking about sentencing. Do you want to talk about that? Because we were off air then, so do you want to talk about it? So, um, for the people who missed it.
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah, we were kind of talking about the sentencing with the gender disparity between the sentencing of male and female criminals, and it seems that uh, quite a few studies, or sorry, quite a few articles that I read from news or anything like the Guardian, it seems that women are given a lot more lenient sentencing, and there's a lot of other big YouTubers that also back this up with facts. I know like Christina Hoff Sommers mentioned the disparity as well between sentencing between um, male and female. And, we always hear about issues that are women's issues, even if they're not strictly women's issues or if they're not that big of a deal. For example, sexist air conditioning. Um, but we don't hear much about things like the disparity between the sentencing of different genders. And a great article is again from a guy who's taken over my channel, a channel I had called Gentleman Talk, where he mentions a um, article in the news about a mother and a father that they both sexually molested their teenage daughter, and that's a horrible thing to do. But I couldn't help but notice, and he pointed out as well that the father got a more strict sentence, while the mother got a more lenient one, despite the fact that they both sexually molested the daughter. And uh, furthermore, the interesting thing is how it's all kind of ignored until it becomes an issue that involves the women. For example, the Brock Turner case, where he got only 6 months for sexually assaulting a woman, and I understand the outrage. He definitely should have gotten more than just 6 months. But what I find interesting is there's constant cases where there's female on male sexual abuse or molestation or assault, and you don't hear as much outrage about it as you do like with the Brock Turner case, which I find really interesting. And again, don't get me wrong, I fully agree with everyone who's outraged that he should have got more sentencing that he did. But I just find it interesting that a case like this, where it's male on female, gets this much coverage, where female on male, not too many people cover it.
Yeah, I agree. And there are even news articles like The Guardian and Washington Post that says that women shouldn't go to jail at all. Like we should just close down all female prisons. It's like so women just shouldn't be punished when women commits a crime. That is just horrible. It's like if a woman commits murder, then a woman shouldn't go to jail. And I would want a horrible person to go to jail. I don't care about gender.
Yeah, and I agree. And I actually think I saw that article mentioning that women shouldn't go to prison, which is of course ridiculous. Um, the it's such a double standard that, in my opinion, is actually, I feel like if we're trying to look at things that are sexist, um, that this whole thing on how they were trying to say that women shouldn't get punished for committing crime is treating women like they're children, like they're not adults, like they have no idea what they're doing, or the kind of the other side of the spectrum where they act like women don't ever commit crime or ever assault people, murder people, or anything like that, which obviously is not true. We see lots of cases where these kind of things happen. So I find it kind of interesting that that we seem to these kind of articles seem to treat women as if it's almost kind of a case of doublethink, at least in my opinion, that that women can't do any wrong, and they're they're fragile creatures that wouldn't do anything bad. And then the other side's kind of like, women can't be held responsible for their actions. um, it's kind of almost comparing them to children, which obviously isn't true. Like, man or women, we're all adults here. We're very aware of any crime we're committing and the repercussions of such crime.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I don't know if this is true in Canada, but the way the laws are written,
Hmm.
men can the way the laws are written, women cannot rape men. The way the laws are written, only men could rape. It's kind of like rape is defined as like forced penetration, but it's kind of like if a woman has sex with a man while he's asleep, that would not be considered rape. That would be considered like sexual assault. When really, I would like it if a woman were to have sex with a man without his consent. I would like it for also be considered rape.
Yeah, I do remember hearing. I'm actually not certain myself if the way the laws are written. I know that a lot of people in Canada hold the the strange belief that if two drunk people have sex, that it's sexual assault on a woman on a woman, but not on a man, even if the man's drunk, which I find interesting. But I'm not certain if the law is written the same way, but I did hear about uh, the way it's written in the U.S. is that it has to be penetration for it to be considered rape, and you know if that's the case, it I think it would should be rewritten because I mean, at least in my mind, rape is the um, basically forced sex on a person that does not want it. Um, that's kind of my definition and thought of what rape is. It doesn't have to do with penetration or not.
Yes, yes. The way it's written, women, it's impossible for women to rape. You know, if a woman has sex with a man while he's asleep, it's not considered rape. Or if a woman were to rape another woman, it's not rape because it has to be forced penetration for it to be considered rape. So if a woman gets raped by another woman, it's not rape because it must be forced penetration. So the way the laws are written, it is basically impossible for women to rape at all. And I think it's unfair, or it's just like what you mentioned. If if two people are drunk, like if two people are drunk and they've been drinking, the man is the rapist and the woman is the victim. You know, it's kind of weird. Or if two people decide to get high, the man is automatically the rapist and the woman is automatically the victim, even if they only had like a little bit of alcohol, even if they both only had a sip of alcohol. The Because I don't know if you've seen Christina House Summers talking about the 1 in 5 rape myth and how they came up with that statistics. It's basically that even if both men and women had like a little bit of alcohol to drink and neither one of them were like all that drunk, still the woman is the rape victim. And it's kind of like weird how we just go through all this mental hula hoops to make a man the rapist and a woman the victim.
Yeah, and I find that I do think I remember seeing that by Christina, um, and I found that really interesting as well. And you know what they don't take into account is a lot of different variables that uh, could be a part of it. Of course, you know, the double standard that if the man is drunk and the woman is drunk, somehow the woman isn't responsible for being drunk, but the man is, so he turns out to be the rapist. I mean, if you look at it in the way, if a man sleeps with a woman and he regrets it, you know, he kind of says to himself, like, damn, that was stupid. I shouldn't have slept with that person. I shouldn't have drank that much. And they kind of accept that they made a mistake. Where if it's a woman that did it, um, somehow that's considered not their responsibility, not their fault. They become a rape victim. And what they don't take into account is, you know, there's all types of people around the world, and there's people out there that like like to get drunk and have sex while drunk. There's people who are in relationships, um, who they'll go out on a date with their girlfriend or their boyfriend, and they'll drink and then they'll sleep with each other later. And and so are we supposed to believe that even though these people are in a relationship, they went out to have a couple of drinks and then they had sex later, that that boyfriend raped his girlfriend? under that line of thinking. It doesn't take into account the many different sort of variables, the different kind of people, and it also shakes the responsibility for women who get intoxicated completely to men, which is um, not right.
Yeah. I also want to talk more about how things are in Canada. Um, how do
Mhm.
you feel about Prime Minister Justin Trudeau? Did you vote for him?
No, I didn't. Um, I, it was nice to get Harper out, but Trudeau has more so made me shake my head than he's done anything that I thought was great. For example, one of the things he did is he got rid of his cabinet and made it completely gender neutral, which is something I find pretty ridiculous because we should be looking at the um, special skills and the stats of people rather than kind of what's between their legs. I mean, we could look at it at any kind of angle where, in nursing, it's there's a lot more female nurses than there is males. So, we don't see people trying to uh, force there to be more of a 50-50 male nurses and female nurses. And I it's like even with track running, there's a lot of black or African track runners, and that would be making an equal cabinet to me is the equivalent of saying, oh, we have too many um, black track runners. We need to make it 50-50 with white and and black, and that's just ridiculous. Everyone There's different people who specialize in different skills, whether it's dominated by a certain race, a certain gender. That's just the way it happens to be. So I was quite unimpressed with the 50-50 gender cabinet. And then uh, the late the latest thing I saw that he was trying to do was um, change the national anthem from "All Thy Sons Command" to I think it was "All of Us Command," which we have much bigger issues in Canada to look at rather than changing a national anthem to make it more progressive.
Yeah. Have you heard the one where Minister Justin Trudeau was arguing with, I believe her name is Rona Ambrose, and he was saying that he doesn't want to call what Muslims did genocide. Have you seen that already?
No, I is that new? I haven't seen that one.
Well, I could pull up the article. Just give me a sec.
Yeah, sure.
Uh, by the way, do you speak French?
No, I don't. I forgot it all over the years.
Yeah, because I don't uh I think like in Canada everything gets written in both English and French, and then you have Quebec, which is like the French section of Canada.
Yep, that's correct.
Yeah. And I don't know if people speak entirely French in Quebec. I'm not entirely certain.
Um, in my experience, no, they usually are bilingual. There may be obviously a lot of people who just speak French, but I I do know there's a lot of bilingual people.
Can you repeat that last bit?
Oh, there's a lot of bilingual people in Quebec that I've met personally, but they do speak more French than they do English.
Mm, yeah, I also heard that people from Quebec are very rude.
Um, I mean, I guess it really depends on person to person. In my experience, I haven't met any rude people from Quebec. It actually, I I find the people that I've met personally from Quebec have been quite what's the word? Kind of a laid back sort of attitude, very comedic.
Mm, yeah. Anyway, I found the article. It's HuffingtonPost .ca. I guess I should just screen share it. Let's see. Let me know if it shows up.
Yeah, I see it here.
You never seen this before?
Against declaring ISIS atrocity. Vote against Tory motion declaring ISIS atrocities as genocide. No, I haven't seen that yet.
Um, well, YouTube is really weird. I wouldn't mind playing the clip. However, sometimes when you play a clip, YouTube tracks it down and it would get your video banned or taken down because there are people who've gotten copyright strikes that way, you know.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, and I wouldn't want to have this interview and then get a copyright strike, and then this video can't be shown and have that only 15-minute videos. That would be very inconvenient for me.
Of course.
But if you want, we could either go through this article or you could just read it later. I could just send it to you on Twitter and you could read it later if you want.
Okay.
Yeah, that would work. See. Colby. There you go. I should probably pull out the interview questions and ask you the normal, typical questions that I normally ask everybody.
Yeah, sure.
All right. If I could find them up. Yeah, I just found the interview questions. How would you describe your personality?
My personality. I would say laid back and analytical, and I'm very introverted. Um, Although I may appear extroverted on my videos, personally, I'm very introverted. I'd say I'm a bit of a, a public cynic, but a personal optimist.
Yeah,
I'd say,
from watching your videos, I would think that you were very, very extroverted and you spend lots of time with many friends.
yeah, I do spend a lot of time with my girlfriend. Um, and every once in a while, I try to make time for my friends. But but yeah, I am definitely very introverted. But I do know in my videos I do appear to be very extroverted.
Yeah, you do seem to be very extroverted. I would never ever take you for an introvert at all whatsoever.
Yeah, I guess you know, being that it's a video, a YouTube video, I kind of act as a certain personality. So if I do find that one of these personalities needs to be an extroverted kind of person, then I sort of take on that part. And I mean, I'm not really alone in that. I know like people like the Amazing Atheist. Um, I know he mentioned in an interview once that he was a very introverted guy, despite the fact that behind a camera he seemed extremely extroverted.
Mhm. Yeah, Vernaculus also said that he is introverted, and I think that guy T said the exact same thing. Like, I think that guy T said that he's shy and introverted. I think so.
Oh yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. With quite a few people on YouTube, but of course it depends on person to person.
Yeah, I was having the discussion with Nick Carroll, and Nick Carroll told me that the vast majority of YouTubers are actually introverted.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, you spend so much time editing and behind a computer screen, I, I, and just on the internet in general. Looking through comments and the such.
Yeah, exactly. You spend all your time thinking of videos. Then after you think of what you like to do for a video, you make the video, then you edit the video, and then you read as much comments as you possibly can. And then the more fans you have, you try to interact with them on Twitter. But it's kind of like if a person is spending that much time over the internet and they're not spending time doing things in real life.
Exactly, or not as much human interaction, which can make people a little bit more introverted.
Yeah, I mean, like there are people like there are YouTubers out there. You would pretty much see them on Twitter nearly 24/7. It's like they just really are posting on Twitter nearly 24 hours, either interacting with their fans or arguing people on Twitter. So that would have to be introverted as opposed to a person who could turn the computer off, turn all of it off, and just spend time with actual people. I mean, people over the internet are actual people, people over the internet can be heard
Mhm.
still.
Yeah, but it's just not the same as if you're interacting with a person face to face. I find that if these types that are spend so much time on YouTube and whatnot, when they're faced with a sort of person to person discussion or hangout, that they feel a little bit more awkward than they usually would with discussing something with someone over the internet, just because that's the platform they're used to. They're not really used to the human person to person interaction.
Oh my goodness, that is exactly what that guy T said in the end of one of his videos. He talked about how nervous he felt. He talked about how awkward he felt, and he talked about how he's actually introverted and shy, and he just, it was the one where he interviewed feminists at a college campus, and I think Milo just passed by. That's the video I'm referencing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. I bet it'd be probably pretty terrifying to interview all those feminists at the Milo, because at the Milo conventions, because they seem to be quite hysterical, from some of the videos I've seen of them protesting Milo's appearance at conferences and whatnot.
Yeah. So when it comes to me though, the internet has helped me like because for me I came from a very dysfunctional family. Like not only is my family very dysfunctional, but I come from a Pentecostal family. It's like a black belt Christian tyrants family. It was a bit tyrannical. It's kind of like, the Bible is the word of God. It was rather cults like. So for me, I was even socially backwards, even for the internet at one point. But the best part about the internet is that people are more likely to give you constructive criticism. That is before they block you and have nothing to do with you again. But before the block, they actually give you constructive criticisms.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And it is very true that a lot of times they'll block you before they do that. I try my best to not block anyone, especially even if I give them constructive criticism or they do the same to me. The only time I ever had to block someone was when they basically told me, this wasn't even my YouTube channel, but more the Facebook page I run, where someone found something that there's a couple of other friends of mine that post on it as well, but I think this one was specifically my post that this person got offended by it, and they basically said they're gonna follow my page so they can report every single post I make. And so I was like, okay, if you're not, I mean, constructive criticism is one thing, but if you're just gonna try to report everything just because you disagreed with what I said or what I posted, then I'll have to block you.
Yeah, when it comes to people, I don't really block people except on Facebook. On Facebook, I block people a lot, but on Twitter or YouTube, I never really found people say or do anything where I have to block. And the reason why I block people more on Facebook is because it's particularly true. When it comes to men from Africa or men from the Middle East, they leave me a series of messages, and it starts in the green, but it goes quickly to the red. Like it becomes r- red flags are flying all over the place the longer they talk. It's kind of like at first they'll be like, hello. And I'm like, hello. Then they're like, how are you? I'm good. Then it's like, where are you from? I'm like, the United States. Then they're like, well, what state are you from? I'm like, Alabama. Then they're like, what city? And then it's like, do you really think I'm going to tell you my city? It's like, what's your phone number? Like, what's your phone number? Here's my phone number. Call me. And it's kind of like, I don't even know you. You really think that I'm just going to give you my number? So I just end up blocking people who, you know, the pattern keeps repeating itself. So it's kind of like the moment when people just ask me what state I'm from, I just start blocking at that point because after then they're like, what city? Then it's kind of like, what's your phone number? And it just gets annoying after a while.
No, definitely, and that's not the first time I've heard of something like that happening. It seems like a typically women too. They get a lot of messages like that from people that are, I don't really know what exactly their intent is, but creepy messages at the very least. Disturbing.
Yes, on Facebook, women seem to suffer from sexual harassment more, but I think it's I think it's purposeful, because um um it's kind of it's kind of like what I hear about how feminists behave on Twitter. I heard that on Twitter, if a man were to say things like "I'm going to rape you," then a feminist is not going to block them, but they would block, the good men, so that the rape culture would seem more prominent and it seems bigger, and to help create fear for men that they need to engineer it as such. And I do think it's purposeful to make it seem more pervasive than what it really is, because when you really think about it, how come if you're conservative, how come if you have a conservative viewpoints, you would get blocked from Facebook ASAP? I mean, like banned from Facebook, like Lawrence Sutter, a conservative, banned on Facebook for 30 days. But you can leave you can sexually harass women as much as you want and not get banned. That should that should send everybody's a red flag that you could get banned from Facebook for being conservative, and Facebook is quick and writes on it, but they don't touch men who sexually harass women. I think it's because they want the rape culture to seem real. They want it to seem pervasive, and they want what feminists view to be true to seem true. It's kind of like false rape reports where feminists falsely accuse men of rape, but it's like it's really important that everybody believes this. It's really important for everybody to believe that this world is a horrible, horrible place. However, I look at where these men are from. They're always from Africa or the Middle East. They're never or barely from America. Maybe like two of them were from America. But you could even tell from their terrible English. Like if you were to even go to their profiles, you can tell that they have horrible English. So it's really not pervasive in our culture. It may be pervasive, but it's in Africa because these men are usually always from Africa or they're always from the Middle East.
Yeah, and I find the whole rape culture thing to be pretty interesting because they're very insistent that that there is one in America and in Canada too. And I find that interesting because we don't live in a society where a woman's getting raped on the street and people just kind of walk by. It's actually the opposite where a woman can make a simple accusation uh, about a man raping them, and that accusation can very well ruin that man's reputation and their entire life, and they have to move out of that town into get a different job, simply just from an accusation. So I find it very odd that they seem to keep pushing this idea that there's a rape culture when in fact rape is so hated here that the simple accusation of it that may or may not be true has the power to ruin someone's life. So, I mean, in third world countries, yeah, there probably might be. I mean, I'm not too well versed, so but from what I hear like rape culture is more like out in Iran and Afghanistan and third world countries, but not here. And at least I can agree with the part that they're not here.
Yeah, exactly. And they feminists are always trying to guilt and shame men. It's kind of like what I hear. What I hear from feminists is that America is equally as bad as Iraq, Iran, Afghanistan. It's also what I hear against the Christians. I hear it's kind of like, well, like you can even hear Steve Shives say this. I don't know if you know who Steve Shives is, but You can always hear that feminists saying, well, here is equally as bad as Iraq, Iran, and Afghanistan. All cultures are the same. All cultures are equal. Women are suffering from rape in Afghanistan. Women are suffering from rape here, when really men could get away with rape in Afghanistan. In these places, women have acid pour on their faces, but feminists also say we have it equally as bad in the United States, and Christianity is equally as bad as the Quran, when really Christianity has a lot more positive verses than the Quran, and hardly anybody follows the Bible the way it is. The vast majority of Christians don't even read the Bible, and yet you get Christians are equally as bad as the Muslims, like with the Orlando shooting. The media didn't blame Islam. They didn't blame Islam at all. They say that he murdered gays because the Western culture hates gays, when really we have laws throughout the country pretty much for LGBT protection. Well, if you look in the Middle East, it's a-okay to throw gays off buildings. It's okay to kill them, to chop their heads off, to stone them. And yet they say that this is the culture because of Christianity. This is the culture that brainwashed Omar into hating gays. Then how do they explain it in more secular countries like Germany, like England, like Sweden, even in secular countries where Christianity pretty much doesn't have an impact or say so at all, countries where atheists are the majority, even still, Muslims throw gays off buildings, they still stone them, they still murder them, they still violently attack them, and it's even more pervasive in their own country where it's legally allowed. So it's like, how do they explain why it is there even in atheist countries while Muslims still do this?
Yeah, it's actually kind of funny because I just left a comment sometime today about this sort of thing. It was on a grade A under A video, which he's a funny guy and I like watching him. But in the video, he mentioned how like the Orlando shooting was by a religious extremist, and I couldn't help but point out that simply that's not true. I mean, yes, the Bible does have some pretty brutal things in it and brutal verses, but you're correct that many Christians today don't really follow it. And if I'm to look at the extremists in Christianity, what does everyone think of? It's the Westboro Baptist Church. And what's the worst thing that they do? They kind of hold up offensive signs saying rude or dumb things, but that's about it. Where if you look at uh, Islam, there's yeah, you're right. There's a lot of beheadings. There's sacrifices, bombings. Um, in there, I do remember seeing a story where a woman was stoned to death for being raped, and a lot of these brutal things. So I do find it interesting that people are trying to push it as all religions when in fact it's not very true, because I can't since the year 2000 I can't think of any sort of radical or extremist religion of any kind besides Islam that has performed any of the acts such as beheadings or bombings or uh, shootings, any of those sort of things.
Yeah, Christianity is not that bad. I mean, Christianity is not that bad at all because Christians, it's been reformed. I think it was reformed during the time Martin Luther. But if you were to look at statistics, sorry, I'm tripping on that word. Statistically, very few Christians read the Bible. Like, I forgot the percentage, but I think only 10% of Christians read the Bible, and very few of them even believe in the literal interpretation of the Bible. You know, and many Christians cherry pick the positive verses. Many Christians focus on love thy neighbor, or many Christians just believe in God but ignore the Bible entirely. So no, it's not all the same. One group of people are reading a book and following the book. The other people are either cherry picking the book or ignoring the book altogether. So no, it's not the same. And if Christians were to be honest with themselves, they're a lot more secular than they think.
Yeah, I mean, and generally, I mean, I'm not a religious person, but I generally don't have a problem with religions of any kind as long as they're good people, really. You know, not pushing the religion on people or um, make like there's a lot of talk about kind of atheists being in the closet or people who aren't religious kind of being in the closet because they're scared that their parents will disown them. Of course, that's an issue we kind of have in the West, and that's more with the people that are a little bit harsher with their beliefs. But there's a lot of nice Christians I've met who just simply believe in God, and they're very friendly, very nice people. You know, and yeah, you don't hear about these guys performing killings in the name of Jesus or anything like that. And in fact, it's I remember seeing a video in Britain actually, where I've heard that in Britain they're having these sort of secluded areas where it's kind of like Muslim communities, and these Christians would hold up their crosses. I guess it's kind of to be sort of on the other side to counteract sort of the Islam, and so they carried their signs through these Muslim communities, and it got very aggressive and violent very quickly. Um, so yeah, to compare really any religion to how bad Islam has gotten is a little bit silly in my opinion. And of course, you know, the thing they try to say is they try to say, stop trying to say all Muslims or all of Islam is like that. And of course, nobody's really trying to say that, but we are trying to say that there's an issue with Islam and their belief and what they do based on their belief, and to not ignore the problem and address it as a religious problem rather than an Islam problem kind of whitewashes the issue.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. It's Islam. it's a problem, not religion as a whole. And it's kind of like the weirdest thing is Orlando, when it comes to the Orlando shooting, what happened was people brought up what Republicans said 2 years ago. It's kind of like, well, you were opposed to gay rights 2 years ago. Therefore, you are equally as bad as the person who killed 49 people.
Yeah, and I've seen quite a few things that have kind of implied that this was an attack on gay people rather than an attack from Islam on the Western society. Um, and I find that a little bit silly to point out, considering the fact that if you look up the Wikipedia article, it even says that the person who committed the shootings, he swore to Islam before committing the act. Um, so, I mean, it's not like it was a person who uh, had a lot of anti-gay things and like held hate speeches and things like this. This was a person who decided they were going to swear to Islam, and because they swore to Islam, they uh, committed an act, killing the infidels.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Islam does say kill the infidels. I just um I just wish people would be more honest when it comes to Islam. I guess I should continue with the interview questions. Have you ever been a feminist?
Um, I think maybe I never at one point ever called myself a feminist. But I do know that throughout my life, even as a young kid, um, I couldn't help but notice these uh, things, these kind of issues that we've talked about before, as well as other things. Like, for example, I remember when I think I was 8 years old, and I saw an episode of, I think it was Maury, and Maury constantly has females coming on where they are accusing their man of cheating. He comes out, the audience boos him, and turns out that a lot of times the guy was cheating. Um, and I would watch this show as a kid, but then what happened was there was an instance where the situation was turned around, and the there was a man up there, and he was basically stating that he was with his wife for quite a while, and there has been like some things that he found suspicious throughout his life, and he just wanted to know for his own sanity that his wife never cheated on him, and it was very genuine and very modest, and just something for him to kind of clear his head. And funny enough, when he came out, the audience still booed him um, rather than being on his side like they usually would be when it was a female trying to find out if their husband or boyfriend was cheating. And when I saw that as a kid, I couldn't help but think, like, what the hell is wrong with these people? Like, they booed all these guys, but now when it's a guy, they're still booing the guy, even though it's him trying to find out if his wife ever cheated. And I noticed these little things all throughout my life, kind of growing up. Did I ever call myself a feminist? I don't think so. I do know I um, believed in some of the rhetoric, like, um, but not to any extreme sort of sense. and ever since I started watching, The Amazing Atheist and other people that had this view against uh, feminism, I kind of looked into all of it myself, and I thought to myself, I was just like, well, do I consider myself an anti-feminist, or do I consider myself something else? And for a time, I thought maybe I was an anti-feminist, and but what I kind of noticed is, even though there's a large legitimacy in what the anti-feminist people say, or the MRAs as well, I felt that obviously there's a lot of good people um, who totally believe in equality in the MRA activist group and anti-feminists, but I never specifically considered myself that, just due to the fact that even though it's a they're genuine groups, and I believe they definitely have a more majority of non-sexist people versus where feminism I believe has a lot more sexist people than it has not. I just didn't want to be associated, even with the small minority um, that considered themselves, or sorry, the small minority that in the MRAs or anti-feminists that were sexist. So I then came across the word egalitarian, which basically meant, believing that people uh, deserved equal rights and equal responsibility. And from the egalitarian pages or groups that I've seen, I've never really came across any sexism. So, and I also didn't really consider it a group more than a title. Um, so yeah, I guess to answer the question, no, I never really genuinely considered myself a feminist. I do believe I believed in some of the rhetoric at an early age, but as I researched and learned more things, I felt strongly against the things I previously believed.
Yeah. For me, though, for me, it's kind of like the hardest thing that I could ever do is try to get people interested in men's rights issues. It's kind of like people would care about rape, people, even though it's a faulty rates, rape statistic, people would care about the free the nipple campaign or whatever, but it's kind of a lot like you can't get people to care about any men's issues or even women suffering in the Middle East. And that is just horrifying. It's kind of like, fine, if you want to help women, why not help the women who really need it? Why not help the women who are getting acid poured on their faces in the Middle East? Why not help the women who are getting their heads chopped off? But you can't even get people to care about that. It's all about first world problems. And that is why I'm against feminism, because I just got through talking to a feminist, or I'm still arguing with a feminist in a dread. Well, not right now, obviously, but it's kind of like the problem is that women should not be sexualized by men, which is basically condemning male sexuality, because it's kind of, so you don't want men to find you attractive. That's how I see it, because it's kind of like that doesn't even make any sense. Humans are sexualized creatures. I mean, sexual creatures. So we sexualize each other. Like, of course, a man is going to be sexually attracted to women, and women are going to be sexually attracted to men. However, women being sexualized seems to be more important than a man who can never ever see his child again, or men facing longer prison sentence or any issues that men are going through, or even women in the Middle East, women who could really benefit from help or aid, women who could benefit from actual help. First world feminists has even turned their backs on women in the Middle East.
Yes, and I definitely agree with that. It's kind of the focus on what more free stuff can I get, or what more sympathy can I get? I mean, if we even look at Anita Sarkeesian, who uh, looks at video games and just tries to find sexism wherever she can in these video games. And the funny thing about this whole sexual objectification thing is, there seems to be all this outrage and about female sexualization and objectivity. But I never heard anyone get upset when the movie, or even the second version of it, Magic Mike, came out. There was, no uproar, no one talking about. So it's funny because whenever it's the sexual objectification of a man, um, or the sexualizing of a man, that's okay. But if it's a woman, it's suddenly not okay. And my belief personally is that with the whole objectification thing is that people are not children. They're the people that go through this sexualization. They're not children. They're adults, and they're consenting adults. So if they want to sexualize themselves, or have themselves sexualized through a photo or something, that is completely up to them. If they are not okay with it, they can walk away if they want to. But they do it because a lot of people like to, feel sexy, or dress scantily clad. I mean, they're if you look at even Instagram, or Facebook, even there's constantly where I've seen women post photos where most of their face is cut off, even, and it's just kind of showing their cleavage, and things like this. So who's objectifying these women? Nobody. They are posting these photos and taking these photos themselves. So and it seems like sexuality and sexualization is just this taboo subject. But in my belief, I feel that we're all adults, and we can make the choices that we make, and live with the positive and the negative of those choices that we make.
Exactly. Like you can go to Facebook or even Tumblr.
Sorry, can you? You're cutting out here. Just 1 second.
Did you fix what's happening?
Okay, yeah, I hear you better now.
Okay, well, it's kind of like with Facebook or Tumblr, you can see women taking pictures of themselves where they crop their heads off, and they take pictures of them in their lingerie. Or you can see like pictures of women standing in front of a mirror and taking pictures of themselves in lingerie, and they block their face off with their camera phone, but they want to show their bodies on camera. And it's kind of like, for these women, if you listen to them, it's about sexual liberation. Some of them come from a very strict religious household where they have to be prudish, and they see taking it all off as sexual liberation. And then feminists are saying, well, you're you're self objectifying. I think that's what the feminists see now. Self um objectifying, and it's amazing how much feminist rhetoric contradicts feminist rhetoric. Like, isn't that slut shaming? Like, aren't the feminists just slut shaming when they accuse, say, self objectification? You know.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's, I mean, especially in the very modern uh, bit of the movement, there doesn't seem to be a lot of uh, thought that goes towards, um, the beliefs that they hold so dearly, and of course, there are feminists out there that truly do believe in equality, and they don't buy into any of the rhetoric. Like Christina Hoff Sommers, for example, still identifies herself as a feminist, where I would consider her more of an egalitarian, but I have no problem with her labeling herself in such a way. But yeah, they don't seem to have a lot of logic or thought behind their beliefs, more so than it is. I find it to be a very big victim complex, where they constantly try to make themselves out to be a victim so people can feel sorry for themselves. Or people can feel sorry for them. So they try to come up with whatever they can to make it seem that women are oppressed, women are um, they're objectified, they're the second class citizen in the West, and it's simply not true. And if these people had any confidence in the things they said, or the things they believed in, they wouldn't try and censor um, things like YouTube channels, Facebook pages. They wouldn't try to shut down events every time Milo goes to speak at a university, or the um, Warren Farrell protest that happened, which happened in Canada, in Toronto, I believe it was, where these people, they're trying to not even let these people inside to hear what the man has to say, because uh, they they would rather just censor it as hate speech than thinking that their ideas are good enough to stand on their own, despite what other people have to say.
Yeah, exactly. I do think that a part of the reason for all the censoring is because they don't truly believe in all of their own rhetoric. Because if you have the correct idea, then why are you trying to censor people who disagree with you?
Yeah, exactly. And just because someone disagrees with you, it doesn't mean it's hate speech, but they would rather try to justify it as hate speech so it can't be allowed. And I'm of the personal belief that even if someone says something that is truly hateful and disgusting, that they still should have every right to say it, because that's I feel like that's kind of how we got so far as we did, that we had this idea of free speech, that people can say horrendous things, but the way our society progresses is good ideas beating bad ideas constantly. Just good ideas eventually win over the bad ideas. And so if we censor things, it 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 becomes very scary to me, because even if I think what someone says is disgusting, I still believe that they have every right to say it.
I'm the same here. I'm totally the same here. Um, Something I wish that feminists would understand is that all women are different, because they seem to put women in a particular box, but it's like all women are different. Women are not just the exact same thing, you know.
Yeah, I agree. It's a wide spectrum of there's a wide spectrum of people out there, and I almost feel like it's even more of a people issue than it is a an issue with feminists. That I seem to constantly find that um, people don't try to take into account um, different people and different their different thoughts, their different beliefs, their different likes and dislikes. Um, Something that's really interesting is, for example, there may be guys out there that get a sexual pleasure out of, and I've seen it too. I've seen it on I can't remember what show, but it was some show talking about weird sexual fetishes, and one of them was women getting into high heels and stepping on these men and stepping on them till they're bleeding, and for some reason they uh, got off on this. So there's an extremely wide spectrum of different people and their different thoughts, and so I'm kind of the belief that as long as it's between two consenting adults, or at least even one consenting adult consenting to something they want to do, that it should just be left alone and not the business of everybody else.
Yeah, the problem with saying that women are being sexualized is that they don't take into account of contracts where, a company comes to a woman or a woman goes to a company and it's kind of like, hey, would you like to be in this commercial? Or a girl going to a company and volunteering to be in a commercial where she's scantily clad because this would get her name out there. It would give her a lot of attention, and she could probably go out to do movie roles, you know.
Yeah, no, definitely. A lot. It really depends on the person. Some people will uh, do a lot to get their name out there, and and basically get their name out there so that they can do the things that they really want to do.
Or it's kind of like this. What about they don't really say much when women sexualize themselves. Well, maybe they have. I haven't really paying attention to Jacqueline Glenn's comments, but I do know that Jacqueline Glenn takes many sexy photos of herself and then use it as the uh what's it's called, the dumb holder or
Oh,
the
the thumbnail.
yeah, the thumbnail pic. Yeah, Jacqueline Glenn takes many sexy pictures of her in lingerie or her in bikini or showing her midriff or whatnot, and she uses that for a thumbnail of her video. Or when you look at Bria and Chrissy, they have the clickbaity titles like the sex song, and they're like undressing each other in the thumbnail. Or it's kind of a lot like uh another clickbait title like, oh, watch how fast could I uh take off a bra, but she's like wearing multiple bras, and she has like a, I don't know, uh um a shirts, like a shirts under all these bras.
Yeah, it's like the slogan that constantly comes around that they say sex sells, and it's very true, even for YouTube. Um, I have no doubt that uh, Jacqueline Glenn's thumbnails contributive, regardless of how significantly, to the popularity of her videos and her channel. And this is a very, very, I find it to be kind of a frustrating issue for myself being a content creator, as it seems that it's very hard to get your stuff watched if you don't put some kind of clickbaity thumbnail in that, where I try my absolute hardest to avoid anything of the sort. But yeah, I've seen videos where they'll have the thumbnail with half the thumbnail having a picture of a girl's butt or her breasts, and these videos won't be necessarily like clever or great, but they'll have a lot of views just because of the thumbnail and that they have a sexy woman in there.
Yeah. Yeah. People don't think of its women sexualizing themselves to benefit themselves. It's kind of like, or like a porn, how porn works. There are women who do their own porn using their own camera, and then they upload it themselves. Or there are women who go to the studio. The studio isn't going to go to your house. The studio isn't going to knock on random people's homes and ask them to be in porn. These women go to the studios and they try out and they hope to get in. It's kind of a lot like both Christianity and feminism. They both demonize sexuality, human sexuality. Some people want to be sexy, and some people want to use their sexuality to get ahead in life. If you don't like it, then don't do it.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, with porn, it's true that a lot of women uh, get into it, because I mean, Mercedes is one of the greatest examples. I follow her on Twitter. Very, very smart girl. Um, she used to be an engineer, and then she went from being an engineer to being a porn star. Why? Because she liked sex and she liked getting paid for sex, and I think she mentioned she actually made more doing porn than she did being an engineer. So, um, it's obviously going to be desirable for, not everybody. Not everybody likes to be sexualized or sexualize themselves, but a lot of people do.
Yeah, exactly. And what's really interesting is how how little feminist outrage there were when a porn star gets raped. Like there was an instance where um Mercedes and Mr. Epstein talked about it, where a porn star got raped, and it was like by five black men. Five black men raped her, and there was no feminist outrage. The media didn't really want to talk about it, but Mercedes tried to raise money for it to raise money to help the stripper or porn star who just got raped, when really it's kind of like if you're a porn star and you get raped, feminists don't care, because in the end, it's kind of like feminism is the new Christianity in the sense that both of them demonizes human sexuality, and for both it's frowned upon. And so it's kind of like, it's kind of like porn stars or prostitutes have it hard when it comes to Christianity. Porn stars and prostitutes have a hard time with feminism or games. Christians tried to demonize games. They weren't successful. Feminism tries to demonize games. They are successful. Both Christianity and feminism aims for censorship, you know, and both Christianity and feminism has taboo words that you're not supposed to say. Like in Christianity, you're not supposed, like for the Republican Christian rights, they had a problem with words like bitch, cunt, fuck, bullshit, ass, etc. And with feminism, you can't say uh, bitch, cunt, bossy, like the band Bossy Movements, or uh, um, they have other words. Somebody had a list, but some they also ban words.
Yeah. I never heard about that myself. The what um, the rape of the porn star or the stripper, and so that's very unfortunate to hear. And good on Mercedes for trying to raise money for this girl. And I think the reason it didn't get coverage by feminists is because a lot of them have a thing against porn stars. Where I've even defended Mercedes against a couple of these people who just are against her just because of what she does, and nothing else. Um, and then I remember the Van Bossy movement too, which I found extremely ridiculous. It's kind of the thing that if you're if you really were a leader type person, someone who could be a leader or um, able to lead people, then if a word like bossy stops you from leading people, then you aren't a real leader. And so I found that a lot of quite a few celebrities I remember got on that bandwagon too, and um, I found that quite a silly waste of time because being in a leadership position, you're going to receive a lot of things and things worse than just being called bossy. uh, so if you're not mentally prepared for that, then you weren't really supposed to be a leader in the first place, and that's okay. Some people aren't meant to be leaders, but to ban a word to try to get more leaders out there that are women specifically is a little bit silly. And yeah, it just reminds me of many of the silly slogans and campaigns that came out, like the video by uh, I think they're called Fuck Hate. That's the YouTube channel, and they had a bunch of little girls swearing like crazy on camera and stating that it's not that bad because they don't get because if people think the swearing's bad, uh, why do you ignore the fact that 1 in 5 women get raped, or there's a wage gap out there, and these are very false statistics too.
Yeah, the 1 in 5 women statistics is faulty because well, Christine Huff Summers went onto it in a video, and it's kind of like I tried to I tried to bring awareness to this when I'm debating with a feminist, and I mean it just gets kind of old after a while because it's like how many times do we have to debunk this, you know?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, the wage gap one is one of those perfect examples that it just will not die no matter how much uh, evidence you throw against it. And a funny fact is something they ignore is in pornography specifically, due to supply and demand, women get paid more in the porn industry than men do, just simply because there's a more demand for female porn stars than there is for male. Now, I can't remember correctly, but I do think that statistic becomes a little bit more evenly balanced if those men are in gay porn. But heterosexual porn, there's a way more demand for um, female porn stars than there is for the male porn stars.
Oh, and it gets really rich. You know how feminists keep complaining about the sexualization of women? Well, the odd part is where while they're complaining that the society sexualizes women and treats women like sex objects, as it turned out, women watch lesbian porn far more than men do.
Oh, that's interesting. I never um, knew that. I actually thought it was the opposite. I thought lesbian porn was specifically tailored for men. So that's kind of an interesting uh, thing to hear about.
Yeah, yeah, it's one of those feminist myths that gets out in society. Like, oh yeah, like what's up with you men and watching female porn? But in all actuality, heterosexual women, heterosexual women outpace men, like strongly outpace men in watching lesbian porn. Yet nobody would ever, nobody would ever go, well, how come both men and women sexualize women? And then the argument kind of falls flat because human nature is strange. So it's kind of like, it's not harming anybody. Let people just do whatever.
Yeah, and that's the nail on the head for me is that if it's not harming someone and it's between one consenting adult or two consenting adults that people shouldn't make a big deal out of it. There was I had a big laugh. I think it was a couple months ago because people were so outraged about Calvin Klein posting a photo where it was taking an upskirt photo of a female model to promote the line of underwear for from that female model, and I I I was just I found it so funny because I'm like, does anyone realize that this is Calvin Klein, the company that constantly has men in underwear? So what's so wrong about this photo? Clearly, the female model is looking at the camera, so she's aware it's there. She's an adult, so I I just people make a big issue out of nothing, and especially if it involves women, it they seem to be very quick to defend it or get offended by it, and this whole kind of thinking of women are objectified, sexualized, basically kind of paints a picture to young girls who are growing up that uh, they are victims, and if they ever see any of these feminists as like I don't mean feminists like Christina Hoff Sommers. I mean feminists like Feminist Frequency, Anita Sarkeesian, Clementine Ford, um, people like this. They see these. if they see these people as role models, they're gonna grow up thinking that they're victims in life, and they're not gonna amount to anything, thinking that they can't get into stem cell fields just because they're women and things like that. When this is simply not true, and there needs to be more positive female uh, role models than these you know, feminists who just want to blame a patriarchy, say that they're oppressed and women are victims. It just creates this victim complex uh, than actual strong, independent individuals.
Hmm. Yeah, I totally agree with you. Um uh I think that we've been streaming for 2 hours, so if once we could end it here.
Yeah, that'd be fine with me.
Yeah, all right. Thank you a lot for coming.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no problem. Bye everyone.
All right, take care.